first one, and I took it in my face.
Of the water?
Yeah.
And where is the public?
The public is over there, way back. Yeah, they look us from the side.
pas de base old school sur la musique jump. Old school. Après, ça s'accélère avec la musique hard style et un pas de base hard jump, plus agressif, plus impactant et beaucoup plus proche du sol. YouTube et les vidéos permettront au style d'évoluer avec de nombreux mouvements aériens apportés par les pays de l'Est de l'Europe, comme l'Ukraine, la Russie ou même la Pologne. Facebook nous permettra d'organiser de grands rassemblements afin que nous puissions danser tous ensemble dans les plus grandes villes européennes, comme Paris, Berlin, Madrid, Kiev ou même Moscou.
Bonjour à tous, bonjour à ceux qui nous rejoignent.
Hello everyone.
Hello
Hello everyone who is watching us on stream. I would like to thank the jumpers of La Horde from the Marseille National Ballet, Kevin Martinelli, Thomas Ong,
Edgar Scaza,
aka
Magali
EDX, and Magali Casters.
The
National Marseille National Ballet is the co-direction by Marine Picard, Jonathan Desbrouet, and Arthur Harel, who are using digital arts for the contemporary dance. I would like to thank them very warmly for all the artistic work that they have accomplished. This is a very interesting and profound emotion that also shares a lot of political and aesthetical questions, and this is a very big pleasure for us to have them next to us. We also have the Master Tools and Tudabon, and thank you so much for Julien Tico, Capsule Works, for this live that we have just watched. Right now, I would like to give the floor to Céline Berthoumieux, who is the co-director of Second Nature and Biennale of CHRONIQUES. Thank you, Mathieu. When, as a team, we thought about this very special moment called the professional meetings of CHRONIQUES, which is always very special, it was the very end of the first lockdown, and at that time we wanted to do two important things. First of all, to give to all of you, the professionals, an experience, and second of all, to give this experience that would be slightly unexpected. we understand that right now it's a very special and particular moment, and this is why it's even more important to be able to share emotions, words, perspectives, but also solidarity. We wanted for this meeting to really be this for all of you, because we understand that it's quite difficult to have a certain impact for the cultural sector within the framework and the conditions in which we're living right now, because the impact of all of this sanitary crisis would be for quite a long time. We understand that right now these conditions are difficult, and if not everyone will die, everyone will be affected. So right now we see a lot of people who are queuing in the commercial and trade centers, even though this is prohibited. We understand that it also impacts the cultural policy, and we have to think about what will come later and how to rebuild everything later. So the very first question that we're facing right now is how we came to be here when the place and the role of the art and the culture is no longer the topic in our society. What is the lack of culture and the blindness that we're talking about right now? So I understand that we have to think about this question and to think about the consequences, to think about what will come later after all of this. Normally, the expos that we have here at Chronique are only accessible to the professionals. However, I would like to underline the situation of all the artists that is right now not really seen. For the living shows, etc., we see the difficulty of the situation for all the artists, producers, and stakeholders in this particular sector. We see that some institutions have already the possibility to act. However, it also is important to be able to see how it will be coordinated. We understand that the term of cultural exception shows the necessity of all the diversity of shapes and cultures, and in all the disciplines. This is something that is due for our young generations in order to make it last. This is our debt in front of the young generations, but also in front of everyone, especially in the framework of the crisis in which we are right now. Right now we are here in Cité du Livre, and the books are right now also confronted to the digital world. And today we're more and more using the digital means. This is the mean for us to maintain the link to everyone else, as well as to the shows. We are creating it in the social media, but to pass from the real to virtual, we would only need a camera, a computer, and a YouTube account, just a button that you have to press in order to make it all work. We weren't able to organize Biennale in November as it was foreseen, but we were able to organize this event digitally. So all this event will be maintained and kept online, which will give us a very precious trace and a possibility for everyone to watch it and to participate. So I would like to thank all the team that has been thinking about this digitalization for all of us. So we decided to create this event in a digital world online, which requires a transformation, a very important transformation, but also it's important to be able to operate all of this with all the financial and technical means, but also the reflection is very important here about the economical and the whole aspect of all of this. But beyond all the economical question, the cultural sector, as the generator of employment, has also to announce once again that we are here to give and to promote all the values to the society, something that goes much beyond all the sanitary crisis for the democracy and for the society. So today we're here in the space of Biennale Chronique, and we have undergone all the steps and all the modifications that were necessary here. So we had to face all the situation just like everyone else in every other company. So it was an uncertain environment, especially during the very last weeks of preparation, because we were not sure that we would be able to open. So it was a setting that was unimaginable until now. However, all our team was able to show this energy and this dynamism that were necessary for all of us, for all of our team. And we have shown by all of this, by this work, that we are a very strong team, a very resilient team, and all the hybrid arts as well as digital arts were able to organize themselves in order to face this future, to show that we still have work to do, artwork to create, etc. We understand the situation is very rare, and we understand the responsibility that is on us right now. We assume this responsibility, and we participate in this very difficult period and this period of transition with our Biennale CHRONIQUES that we have maintained despite anything. And we have the expos here in Aix, in Marseille, and in Avignon. I wish you a very pleasant event to all of you. Thank you.
Merci Céline.
Thank you, Céline. Thank you so much, and thank you for your words on behalf of CHRONIQUES. And right now I would like to suggest for us to take off, and I would like for us to spotlight our guest of honor, Taiwan. We have a pleasure to have a very short video from Audrey Tang, who is Taiwan's digital minister, who, as you will see, uses digital for helpful purposes, but also to provide cultural solutions despite the problems of the health crisis.
Hello, I'm Audrey Tang. I'm really happy to be here to share with you some thoughts around how Taiwan countered the coronavirus using the power of digital social innovation. Social innovation, that is to say, people who participate from all walks of life in order to publicly benefit the society, is the cornerstone of the Taiwan's collective intelligence response system, and it's really fast. Whereas many jurisdictions began countering coronavirus only this year, Taiwan started last year. Last December, when Dr. Li Wenliang, the PRC whistleblower, posted that there are new SARS cases, he gets inquiries and eventually punishments from his local police institutions. But at the same time, the Taiwan equivalent of Reddit, the PTT board, has somebody with the name NomoRepipe reposting Dr. Li Wenliang's whistleblowing. But instead of facing discipline, the head of the CDC immediately noticed this post and issued an order that says that all passengers flying from Wuhan to Taiwan need to start health inspections the very next day, the first day of 2020. And so this says two things. First, that the civil society trusts the government enough to talk about possible new SARS outbreaks in a public forum, and that the government trusts the citizens enough to take it seriously and treat it as if SARS has happened again, something we've always been preparing since 2003. And because of this open civil society, according to the Civicus Monitor, Taiwan is the most open society in the whole of Asia. We enjoy the same freedom of speech, the same freedom of assembly, of the press, and so on, as other liberal democratic countries, but with the emphasis on keeping an open mind to new novel ideas from the society. And this is why our schools and businesses still remain open today. So for example, every day, our Central Epidemic Command Center holds a press conference, which is live streamed. We work with the journalist community. They answer all the questions from the journalists, and it's all live streamed. And because of this, whenever there's new ideas coming from the civil society, anyone can pick their phone and call 1922 and tell that idea to the CECC. For example, there was one day in April that a young boy that said they don't want to go to school because their schoolmates may laugh at him for wearing a pink medical mask. The very next day, everybody in the CECC press conference started wearing pink medical masks and making sure that everybody learns about gender mainstreaming, which is, again, a social innovation. So this kind of fast response builds trust between the government and the civil society. Another focus is fairness. For example, when we ramped up the facial mask production, making sure that everybody can use their national health insurance card to collect masks from nearby pharmacies, fairness is the guiding principle. So not only do we publish the stock levels of all the pharmacies, but we actually publish it every 3 minutes. And that is why GovZero and many community contributors built more than 130 tools that enables people who prefer viewing maps or people with blindness who prefer to hear from voice assistants, as well as people who are using the chatbot like a Line platform, which is very popular and so on, can get the same inclusive access to the information about which pharmacists near them still have the mask. And because Taiwan has more than 99.9% of health coverage, people who show any symptom will then be able to take medical mask, go to a local clinic, knowing that they will get treated fairly and without incurring any financial burden. And this also enabled people who make dashboards that lets people see that our supply is indeed growing, that we now can collect, if you're an adult, 9 facial masks every 2 weeks, or 10 if you are a child. And it shows us where in Taiwan do we have a oversupply or undersupply, and we change the pharmacies based on the real feedback of the pharmacist, so that they receive supplies as well as the ordering system is also co-created with the whole of society. So based on the analysis, as you can see our premier smiling happily here, that is because we started working with convenience stores. So you can take the same NHI card to go there and collect your mask anytime, 24 hours a day, because there's many people working in municipality that have a longer working hour than pharmacists. And so before, when we only ration through pharmacists, they could miss the mask collection simply because they work too late in the day. And so we ensure fairness of all kinds. And finally, I would like to stress that because it's a stressful time, people feel anxious. There's a lot of panic buying, a lot of conspiracy theories. In Taiwan, our counter-disinformation strategy is based on the idea of humor over rumor. So when there is a panic buying of tissue papers, there was a rumor that says it's the same material as facial mask. And there was a panic buying. The same premier, smiling in the previous slide, now shows his bottom and says in a very large print that we only have 1 pair of buttock each. So meaning that we don't need to panic buy tissue papers. And then it shows a very clear table saying that facial masks are produced using Taiwanese materials and the tissue paper are produced using South American materials. And this went absolutely viral. And because of that, the panic buying of tissue paper is died down within a day or two. And finally, we found out the person who spread the rumor at the first place was the tissue paper reseller. And this is not just a single shot point in the social media. Every single CECC daily press conference gets translated by the Ministry of Health and Welfare spokesdog, or 总裁, the dog CEO, that translates social distancing, hand sanitation rules, remembering to pay your pre-orders and so on, all into very cute dog memes. And because these goes viral, we make sure that our humor, our factual humor, spreads faster than rumor. And this is how we make sure that Taiwanese people still feel calm and collected even during the pandemic. So I only have 5 minutes, so this is all I can contribute within 5 minutes, but please feel free to read more in taiwancanhelp.us. Thank you for listening.
Merci beaucoup. Après ce temps un peu humoristique, alors on n'a pas de masque rose.
Quite humorous presentation. Unfortunately, we do not have pink masks, but we will spend right now a very important moment with Sabrina Calvo, who will join us here on stage. So the idea is, first of all, to introduce Sabrina, who is a writer, fashion designer, and designer of virtual worlds. She's known for her innate sense of wonder. And please, can you turn on her mic? And we will be talking with her about imaginary things. We actually wanted to talk a little bit about Biennale and to comment about it right now. Of course, the Biennale was not open to general audience, but our desire was to talk a little bit about the work done by Mathieu Vabre and the work that has lasted for 2 years already, collecting all the artwork of different artists around eternity. And Mathilde Nourisson-Monet has selected and written a very beautiful text in 3 chapters that will be presented right now. We will comment on it with Sabrina, and then we will be watching the 2nd chapter and the 3rd chapter. Sabrina, you can take off your mask because I believe that the distance is reasonable here. So we will watch the 1st chapter commented, the 2nd chapter commented, and the 3rd chapter commented. It's a big pleasure to see people face to face. This meeting had to happen a little bit earlier in this year because we have had dialogues with Sabrina for quite a while about the digital arts etc. All of these were very interesting dialogues, and for you, it
Sabrina.
has a lot of references, important references. Yes, thank you. Hello, my name is Sabrina. It's a big pleasure to be here with all of you, especially in this situation of the COVID. It was a little bit weird earlier when I came here and I saw this absolutely empty room. I thought that we were creating different situations in our life right now, and this is something that is very good. Yes, of course. Well, when it's a little bit empty, we will fill it with different texts. So right now, this will be the first chapter that you will watch on screen.
Choisir comme sujet l'éternité, c'est réfléchir à sa définition ou, du moins, à sa tentative de définition. L'éternité est indéfinissable, cyclique, omniprésente, potentiellement illusoire. Abdessamad El-Montassir propose une vision de l'éternité sans début ni fin, où à travers son vécu, il se demande si le monde et l'histoire ne disparaissent pas pour renaître encore et encore. L'éternité cyclique se transforme en un temps suspendu dans la monographie de Laurent Pernoud. Je cherche un endroit où personne ne meurt jamais. Ici, mobilier ancien, là, et la décoration d'une autre époque, se mélangent aux œuvres contemporaines. The Kiss ou Foyer sont autant de moments suspendus, figés et infinis, où l'arrêt du temps devient une véritable quête d'immortalité. Plus intime, Jeanne Susplugas a une vision personnelle de l'éternité qui résonne en nous de façon familière. Chaque moment vécu ou à vivre se guérit et se digère par la psyché. L'éternité serait le fruit de notre histoire, paradoxalement cyclique et toujours en quête de moments suspendus, infinis et éminemment personnels. L'éternité se ressent en filigrane dans le temps passé, présent et futur. Kilkor, l'œuvre en miroir d'eau de Félicie d'Estienne-d'Orve, inspirée des mandalas tibétains, illustre bien cela, où par la réverbe des créations de Vasarely, l'eau devient forme, souvenir et allégorie d'un rythme qui passe. L'éternité est là, en majuscule, quête de l'histoire de l'humanité. Les avancées techniques et technologiques au fur et à mesure des années ont donné une toute autre dimension. L'accélération du développement des technologies transforme le monde à un rythme jamais imaginé par le passé. Et la manière de penser le temps est au cœur de nos enjeux actuels. Perpétuité de Félix Luque-Sanchez est une œuvre où les machines ne cessent de faire et défaire par mouvements répétitifs et identiques le travail de l'une et de l'autre. Elle trace une métaphore du temps présent et de notre temporalité accélérée par la modernité technologique. La quête de l'éternité est une nouvelle tâche pour nos machines, pourtant, elle ne semble pas être atteignable. La société contemporaine a modifié notre système de référence du temps, de l'espace, sur les bases de notre expérience personnelle. Tsai Ting, avec l'aide d'une petite voiture à moteur, recrée un micro-espace-temps, où le jouet tourne en boucle. Il explore ici la relation paradoxale entre le mouvement et le surplace, pour réinterroger le sens même de notre vie. L'idéal de l'infini se retrouve dans nos déplacements. Dans The Turning World de Chen Waren, il enregistre 1 seconde de temps humain et met en lumière ce que nos mouvements physiques dévoilent de nos habitudes inconscientes. Le résultat, c'est un seul et unique personnage. À ce moment précis, chacun porte à la fois son passé et marche vers son futur, sans savoir où tout a commencé, ni quand tout finira. Le monde est un système complexe formé d'entités interconnectées en réseau. Entre monde microscopique et monde macroscopique, Ivan Liu illustre ce phénomène avec The Rai-Spile Model. Ce dernier consiste en l'étude de phénomènes complexes, comme le changement climatique, la propagation de maladies, les krachs boursiers, etc., etc. Cette œuvre met en évidence comment de micro-changements, mis bout à bout, peuvent entraîner de grosses conséquences. Le système monde est-il devenu anticipable ? Les scientifiques ont-ils remplacé nos oracles ? Les prophéties ont-elles laissé la place au scénario prospectif ? Avec Prévisible, Antoine Schmitt interroge les notions de prévisibilité et de responsabilité sur le climat futur. Anticiper les changements climatiques permet de parfaire nos connaissances sur les processus en jeu. Mais dans quelle mesure le futur est-il déjà écrit ? Et pouvons-nous influer sur lui ? Cette œuvre évolutive débute sous la forme d'une carte de données météorologiques. pour devenir une créature organique, sensible aux températures et précipitations, et dont l'avenir semble bien incertain. Dans la quête de l'éternité, l'emprise du temps est inéluctable. Ne faudrait-il pas alors dépasser les nouveaux récits sur le progrès, qui nous invitent à nous exfiltrer de l'engrenage du temps? Ne faudrait-il pas dépasser les prédictions dystopiques? Choisir l'action. Se demander, sommes-nous impuissants? Pouvons-nous influer sur le futur? Avons-nous encore le temps pour l'éternité? La situation contemporaine est celle d'un état de seuil. Rien ne semble avoir changé. Pourtant, tout soudainement peut basculer. Réparer la nature? Rien n'est moins sûr. Dans Tipping Point, l'iceberg de Barthélemy Antoine Loff est sous perfusion. Nous sommes là au cœur du paradoxe. Est-on face à une proposition de réparation du climat ou un objet de collection passé, figé dans une posture passive? Ambiguïté retrouvée dans Rebound Tree de Chang Chi-wei, qui tire son inspiration d'un rite japonais l'ikebana. Il observe la relation entre les êtres vivants et les objets inanimés. L'arbre technologiquement réincarné tente d'imiter le vivant. En conclusion, on peut se demander si l'éternité comme prospective dépend de nos usages et convictions. Dans notre quête de contrôle du temps, on a appris aux machines à travailler pour nous. Mais ne finissons-nous pas par travailler pour elles? Chronique, Biennale des imaginaires numériques, questionne notre utilisation de la technologie. Finalement, nous avons le temps pour l'éternité, si nous laissons la nature nous le permettre.
So, following this very first chapter that we have just seen about the Biennale Chronique, I would like to talk to you about one thing. All the digital arts and the use of the digital in the science fiction is often perceived as dystopian. Is it a way to talk about the future negatively, or to show the future as something frightening? Is it a way to compose our present and to modify our future? I think that you have to turn on your mic. Sabrina speaks very quickly. However, it takes her some time to formulate the idea, right? Yeah, normally you speak quickly. Yeah, when I have ideas, I start going very fast.
Oui, alors, bon, moi, ça fait déjà un certain temps que j'essaie de plus formuler une pensée dystopique ou une pensée de...
I tried not to formulate dystopian thoughts for a certain time right now because I have understood at some point that there is a bunch of things in our society that are still narratives, especially talking about the collapsology, which is quite fashionable for a certain perception, especially in terms of present science fiction, in terms of the modernity and contemporary approach. And we understand that right now it actually changes the position from the absolute position that it had had in the society. And now our society, as it is, has this hold up on the nature, and it actually believes that it can talk on behalf of the nature and to say what is acceptable to think within the society. But I think that it is all not true, and we are part of all of these lies. These lies are collapsing right now, and this is a catastrophe, but at the same time, it's also an opportunity to see what there is when it opens, because we have this possibility to actually look inside these lies that are exploding right now, because very often we have some hidden messages that are still there. So it's very important for us to go there and to look for these messages instead of looking at all the cracks. To see these messages and to see what exactly it represents as a transmission for all the people who are around us and who do not have the same privilege as we have, because as a society we have a certain number of privileges that we have constituted for ourselves. We have certain standards of what is a society of justice, etc. I actually have a certain echo, and this is quite weird when I'm talking. So, through my culture and through my community, I am thinking about science fiction differently. I'm seeing the science fiction based on the notion of hope. And the notion of hope is not about saying that everything will end up well and will happen very well. No, because every society has a permanent catastrophe from the very beginning of this construction, from the very beginning of this hold-up of the industrial development that we have had, with all those people who have had capital and who decided that they were masters of the nature and who decided to abuse of this nature. So what interests me here is not to say that everything will be well in this society, but that everything will end up by making sense in this society. In this sense, we are the ones who can do it and who can achieve this sense. So the notion of power is also important here for me. The notion of power means that we don't have to destroy, but to make something obsolete. And by doing this, we also see the community work on the field. We do it. All different associations and organizations do it, and I'm participating in some of them, and I can see that not really the change, but the will to adapt our environment to this smile is very strong, and we have to document it and to witness it. So for me, the science fiction is not really a perspective, but a testimony. And this is actually the very core of the artistic creation today, is this transmission of the ability to see by the structure of the very skin of our world. So do you have this feeling somehow that when art or culture starts intervening here and influences this antrim, does it give this productivist perspective here? I'm working with a team called Zanzibar. Sorry, this mic feels a little bit aggressive for me. Okay. So I'm working with a team called Zanzibar, and our credo, if we can say it, is to break the prison for the future. The future has been imprisoned by the mythological prison that we have built during the years, and it's based on the comparative analysis of different religions, with all the different Campbellian theses, or the thoughts by Mirsai or by some other people who are, for me, quite problematic. And it's not really about creating new imaginary worlds, but to undoing all the already existing imaginary worlds that are built on the lies. So it's also this idea of freeing our brothers and sisters who are in prison, either as an idea, as a gesture, or as an action that can be done daily, or as an intent to activate something, to do something very honestly from one to another, to accept the paradox of one another, and to accept this confrontation of different paradoxes. I think that this is something that can really help us. I'm not really futurist, futurologue, or perspectivist. I don't really understand the future. I don't know what I can do for the future. What I can do here is to understand the present. Aren't you a little bit in the future when you're understanding this present? Because we cannot really break the imaginary, because the human being needs imaginary. And today, when we're talking about futuristic narratives, isn't it an opportunity for us to have inclusive narratives that talks about different space and nature. Yes, of course, but it's not really about talking about future, it's talking about eternity. This is what interested me a lot, because all of these artworks seems to me very
Non pas de définir l'éternité, qui à mon avis serait encore une fois
actual right now. Because we're not really trying to define eternity. We cannot talk on behalf of nature. We cannot start defining what is nature. And here I'm talking really about nature, not the nature, because we are all part of nature.
Et du coup,
And
malheureusement, c'était moi
unfortunately,
éthique sur le totem.
I was judging my ethics on the totem. So I'm trying to go back to my thoughts, because this totem is actually troubling and for me. So for the eternity, I wanted to know what was eternity. But if you ask me what is eternity, I have no idea. But I can have a contact with the sensation, with this profound time through something that takes us not in a linear way, but it touches our emotions, and this sensation to interact with something invisible, for me at least, it's not something that happens in a linear manner. But it's not really about talking about the future, like you will probably die soon and you have an intention right now, and this intention will have a certain impact on the future, etc., etc. But at the same time, we can try and tell ourselves that probably this is not what is really interesting, and probably we're not really in this idea of the present, because being in the present, right now we see it as a magical solution to all the ills that we have in the society, but at the same time, this is another imposture that capital is given itself to make itself a little bit more trustworthy, and this is wrong. So for us, it's more the question to dive into this perspective, very deep perspective of the eternity. And instead of talking about eternity, we could talk about
notre capacité à nous émouvoir de ce qui nous dépasse, en fait.
Our capacity to be surprised by something that is so much bigger than us. And it's also very interesting to work with this sensation of something invisible. That's what's interesting for me. I'm talking here from my point of view, from the point of view of my practice.
J'ai une plateforme pour dire ces trucs-là, mais moi je ne parle que de moi.
I can talk to different people who are viewers on their screen, online, etc., but I can only talk about my practices and my own opinion here. To somehow come to these topics of the eternity and of the fact that the imaginary probably makes us eternal and immortal somehow. And to have a transition to these topics, I would like to watch the second chapter with all of you right now.
Ce début de siècle, c'est celui d'un constat et d'une prise de conscience, celle de la nécessité profonde d'une mutation sociale, économique et écologique, celle qui va nous permettre de pallier à l'effondrement de la biodiversité et aux autres conséquences géopolitiques, économiques et sociales. Boris Labbé, dans La Chute, nous l'a décrit de manière allégorique, en évoquant une chute mythologique, donnant naissance à l'enfer et au cercle du paradis, et n'ayant de cesse de bouleverser le monde. Revenons au temps présent. Su Yu, à travers son œuvre Futur Choc, s'inspire du récit d'Alvin Toffler. Il nous raconte une société portant les stigmates du stress et des changements trop rapides illustrés par le tout jetable, la surcharge d'informations et la technologie non éthique. Progressivement, nos représentations du vivant se sont transformées par la dissémination des technologies numériques dans l'environnement. Elles y ont opéré de nettes transformations. À l'image des jardins cybernétiques de Donatien Aubert, on y ressent le bouleversement des relations causées par la modernité technoscientifique entre l'espèce humaine, les autres formes de vie et les milieux dans lesquels elle s'insère. Le présent semble bien incertain et chaotique. Sylvia, de Stéphane Perrault, nous plonge dans un récit d'anticipation du vivant, pour voir éclore un nouvel imaginaire où s'entremêlent les mythes de la fin des temps et les théories d'anticipation. Et c'est peut-être de cela dont il s'agit finalement. Nous sommes face à un constat qui semble sans appel, une fin du monde en cours est peut-être même déjà passé. Alors, autant penser l'après maintenant. Que voulons-nous faire pousser sur les ruines? Pousser, le verbe est important. On est dans le champ lexical du vivant, de l'ensemble du vivant. Et si l'Anthropocène nous a appris quelque chose, ce sont que les actions humaines, les progrès humains impactent l'ensemble de la nature, des animaux et des écosystèmes existants. Mais est-ce que le progrès est forcément synonyme de chaos? Les solutions se trouvent dans l'existant. En prêtant davantage attention au vivant, en s'en inspirant sans pour autant renier les progrès technologiques, on pourra vivre le futur. S'inspirer du vivant, c'est tout d'abord l'observer. Immergeons-nous dans Women Series de l'artiste italien Quaiola. Recréant des conditions similaires à celles des peintres en plein air de la fin du XIXe siècle, il observe et analyse les paysages naturels à l'aide d'appareils technologiques perfectionnés et les transforme ensuite grâce à de nouveaux modes de synthèse visuelle. Prenons vraiment de la hauteur. L'Observatoire poétique et sonore de Claire Williams, Zorias, nous invite à regarder nos existences au global. Elle nous propose de nous repositionner au sein d'un univers plus vaste, pour ressentir au plus près le rythme de l'activité électromagnétique du Soleil. Mais alors, comment vivre ensemble? Ce rapport de domination et de défiance entretenu entre l'environnement et la technologie, la Terre et l'homme, est similaire à celui abordé dans une autre œuvre de l'artiste Chan Chi-wei, Infectious Series. Grâce à des lampes fluorescentes, les plantes vivantes évoluent au fur et à mesure de leur croissance, marquées par la beauté et la cruauté de leurs relations. Nous pensons trop souvent le vivant comme simple dommage collatéral de la technologie ou du progrès. Cet état de fait n'est pas immuable. Avec son installation en réalité virtuelle Spring Odyssey, Élise Morin propose de repenser les relations avec le vivant. Nous voilà au cœur de la forêt rouge ukrainienne, située à moins d'1 kilomètre de la centrale de Tchernobyl. Il ne s'agit pas de nier la catastrophe écologique, loin de là, mais de repenser le monde à partir de tous les organismes vivants qui coexistent aujourd'hui, qu'ils soient mutants ou pas, visibles ou non, sans hiérarchie. Sans hiérarchie, Millennium Ginseng Project de Kukwangui nous montre que cumuler les forces issues de la nature et les inventions humaines nous permet de comprendre et de sauver les écosystèmes. En coopération avec des scientifiques, l'artiste a créé plusieurs nouvelles espèces de ginseng, dont les effets sont bien plus puissants que l'espèce sauvage. Il prend la forme d'un médicament hybride, résultat de l'alliance entre la science occidentale et la médecine traditionnelle chinoise. Cela pourrait s'avérer être une solution aux multiplications des récoltes illégales de ginseng qui menacent la biodiversité. Il s'agit de renouer le dialogue avec le vivant. Lithosis, de Rocio Berenguer, explore la possibilité de rentrer en communication et de mettre en relation les êtres, qu'ils soient minéraux, végétaux, humains ou technologiques. Allons encore plus loin. Dépassons le simple mode communicationnel pour tendre vers l'hybridation. Cela paraît possible pour Eva Medine. Dans son installation Le Monde après la pluie, elle y compte les aventures d'une entité hybride, à mi-chemin entre une figure humaine, robotique, minérale et végétale. La marche mélancolique, la transformation lente de son être, en font un passeur symbolique pour envisager des relations d'interdépendance entre le vivant et le non-vivant, le visible et l'invisible. Et si l'acceptation d'autres formes de vie était la réelle odyssée de notre époque? Ça semble être la mission proposée par l'installation Post-Grow du collectif Disnovation.org. Les artistes mettent à disposition une boîte à outils d'orientation éco-politique. Elle s'inscrit dans le contexte des crises actuelles pour construire avec le vivant de nouveaux récits. Commencer à être en action, c'est mieux vivre le monde actuel. Collaborer, dialoguer et s'hybrider avec le vivant. Pour que ce qui pousse sur les ruines ne soit pas identique à ce qui fut auparavant.
Ce deuxième chapitre,
The second chapter,
justement la place
I would like, it makes me think about the place of the narrative, because finally we are creating universes, we are creating the imaginary in order to become immortal. We see that the myths are creating a certain eternity. This is something that goes beyond us. So what do you think about that? Probably goes far beyond the question of the person themselves. For me, it's quite complicated to talk about this question because, unfortunately, I'm somebody who is very much self-centered, and I think that one day, probably thinking about the fact that one day I probably will reach a certain form of immortality. For me, this is something that I do not do, because for me, it's something that is very sublime. I'm a very derivative person. I'm not this kind of person. So I'm producing something that corresponds to my time. I try to move quickly. I have my ego, and I'm fighting with my ego all the time. And at a certain point, for me, it's very difficult to be able to talk about this question. But what really interests me when we're creating universes is to not create narratives, because for me, it's more important to create instances, sensations facing all the narratives. So I'm much more interested by the things that could have happened, things that will happen and that has happened, instead of trying to create a certain eternal logical space for all the things and for how they would happen. So there is always a little bit of delay or of advance here.
On est toujours en train de tomber sur, pas la mauvaise note, mais on est toujours tombé sur...
So it's like we're always right near, and it's always something surprising. We have been talking about jazz yesterday with a friend, and it's very interesting to see it as an improvisation, to see the grammar of a story as an improvisation, to see the way of telling the stories this way. So for me, this is something that is to be destroyed. And from the very beginning of my work, I do my best to make people understand, not through digital. I don't really like the word digital because I don't really understand it. But I think that especially when we're building a virtual world or building, let's say, a cyber game that has been part of my expertise for quite a while, is to make this narrative, the story from this universe, as not a traditional story, but much more poetic.
La manière dont les choses sont mises,
the way things interact with one another shows this intensity and continuity, because we can modify and vary this intensity. We can vary it all the time, and we can work with these non-stories to show the intentions in time. Intentions in the linear manner or not. And what I like here is that we're not trying to tell stories. I don't want to be told stories. I cannot read fiction anymore. I cannot watch movies or TV. Probably this is just because I have seen and read too much, but probably it's also like an allergic reaction, a necessity to place us within a structure that has to accompany the sense in a certain way. When we're talking about the narrative, the story, we're also talking about the new governance model, the cooperation, the thought as archipelago. This is also a form of progress, and this is also achieved with the digital culture. This is how we thought about it. Yes, well, I don't really know what's the notion of progress. This is something that makes me hesitate as well, this term in particular, because there are things that are not progressive and that are very beneficial for the society. There are also things that don't have to progress and are still interesting for the society. So the word progress is a little bit something that is used by the society to show something that we are living through. And the way that we are using this progress that the digital has given us to build something real, and the way to organize it and to live within a community, but also to control it, to somehow devise it and to sell it to us as a lot of different stories, predictable stories, controlling what we should do and how we should explain things that we do. So I'm really against all of this, because I think that when we apply this mechanism to the living, and we can see it in the hospital, for example, in relation with all the treatments that we have in the hospitals right now, we have the progress there thanks to the community and to the committee of all the staff members who are working together on the notion of expertise, on the legitimacy of the expertise, not to do something light or something against the medicine, but we are sharing these treatments. And for me, this is something that is not exactly progress, but this is something that had to be here since for every time, because otherwise, it wouldn't be effective. It wouldn't bring value for the increase in the development that we have in this society with the lies that we have applied to the nature. Aren't we talking here about the collective story, and the collective story that allows us to actually explain differently all the different approaches, scientific or artistic approaches? Yes, of course, but these are not stories for me, because, well, I'm writing stories, actually. I'm writing novels that are stories, but the only time when I can reach something sublime is when I'm learning something, or when I can actually understand how to really have this story. So probably it's not really my place to be talking about this. But the characters in your novels, they actually stay with us. Yes, of course. Well, I have kept your characters with me. Yes, you are completely right. Because people who are reading my novels, they have to understand something, or some people would say this is a total abstraction, and I understood nothing of it. I assume I'm a very lazy person, so yeah. So it's not like really a short story of 50 pages or something. Yeah. Some of the novels take 3 years plus to write. So, but I don't want to say that this is easy, because this is not easy. This is a very hard work to write a novel. And what I was talking about is that the characters are very important, because what is intriguing and interesting for me is to create some intrigues, some stories that would really tell us something strange. But I really like to have these characters that would be very much related to our everyday life, and who will react to all of these strange events that are happening, because it's important for me to explore how we react to all these absurd things, to singularity, to eternity in our existence, when we have our clothes, our fashion, our telephones, our masks, our depossession facing the policy, this melancholic mood in which we are living all the time, this shock in which we're living all the time, when we are advancing like diaphan creatures. And we are very surprised by everything that happens here, and we're like, oh my God, I cannot stand it anymore. So this is a permanent process, and it's very interesting to visualize this sublime confrontation, to look at this postmodern irony. We have gone beyond this postmodernism, and this is what I like. Yeah, this is how we can be actually resilient if there is no chaos. Yes, exactly. We are reinventing these stories. This is part of sharing the experience, very essential, very emotional. And today we are actually cutting this sensuality. Look at the space that we have between us. So it's very difficult to establish a certain connection with different people with different points of view. So we are really creating artificial horizons for ourselves. This is also something that disturbs our relationship with the living, with the body, but it also changes the collective story that we can call story a posteriori. Just to conclude this, I would like to share you the third chapter of this story of Chronique. please watch it.
Si la quête de l'éternité est le but ancestral de toute vie humaine, c'est surtout car elle questionne notre devenir et notre aspiration à être éternel. La quête de l'éternité se révèle être une quête de l'immortalité. Dans Vanitas Machine de Verena Friedrich, elle représente bien ce désir de vie éternelle. En prolongeant artificiellement la durée de vie de l'objet, l'artiste interroge la possibilité de retarder la mort et de sortir de sa condition de simple mortel. La véritable question derrière cette quête ultime d'immortalité n'est autre que « Voulez-vous vivre pour toujours ?» Sur ce sujet, la technologie a ouvert de nouvelles perspectives. Les nanotechnologies ont en effet contribué à améliorer les capacités humaines, qu'elles soient physiques ou mentales. Si on avait la possibilité, grâce à ces nouvelles découvertes, de régénérer nos cellules, de rendre l'inutile utile et le vétuste de nouveau viable, à quoi ressemblerait l'humain 2.0 ? Peut-être à The Appendix Human de Paul Kwong. L'artiste a recréé un laboratoire pour explorer les possibilités de l'appendice, appelé organe archaïque. Par le biais de la science et de la technologie, ce dernier développe de nouvelles capacités. Dans un monde qui semble sans limite, si on allait encore plus loin, si on externalisait la vie. Bienvenue chez Future Baby Production. On vous propose de rencontrer Unborn 09, la nouvelle évolution de la grossesse high-tech, où le corps devient un système de communication cybernétique grâce à des utérus artificiels. On travaille sur les organes, sur les corps, et également sur le cerveau, sur la psyché et sur les souvenirs, jusqu'à échapper à son enveloppe corporelle tout en fusionnant avec nos machines. Il faudrait se rappeler de tout, se souvenir de tout. Tout retenir pour tout transmettre. C'est ce que souhaite F. F, c'est un jeune homme qui enregistre ses souvenirs, afin qu'un avatar puisse les transmettre aux générations futures. Quentin Lannes, dans son œuvre, se demande pourquoi F désire vivre pour toujours. N'ayant pu lui poser la question, il substitue la présence de F par celle d'une emoji et dresse son portrait à partir d'indices récoltés sur Internet. Tout doit perdurer, même si le corps n'y résiste pas, c'est l'aboutissement suprême du transhumanisme. Le corps n'est plus un temple, il n'est qu'une enveloppe remplaçable. La réalité virtuelle nous le prouve tous les jours. Elle augmente les corps, les déploie et au fur et à mesure les efface. Le transhumanisme, c'est également questionner les outils qu'il génère. Mais alors regarde-les, casque sur les yeux, les écoutilles dans un autre monde. Ou alors, est-ce le même qui s'est juste dédoublé ? Bienvenue dans le futur. Ici, c'est déjà demain. Le futur, c'est avoir chacun son assistant personnel, qui régit notre vie en nous connaissant par cœur, comme dans l'expérience MOA.
Marre d'être standard ? Avec ton assistant personnel MOA, évolue maintenant vers le forfait citoyen Premium. Débloque l'accès à 50% de rues en plus, 40% d'espaces verts.
Le futur, c'est aussi vivre à plusieurs endroits à la fois et en même temps. Le futur, c'est l'apogée de l'ubiquité, c'est occuper à la fois le monde matériel et le monde immatériel. Et toi, vous êtes en IRL ou online ? Vous êtes ici et là-bas. Ce là-bas est virtuel, immortel, possiblement un endroit où on ne meurt jamais. Hong Whiteson en offre un avant-goût. Le futur, c'est la sélection des souvenirs et l'effacement d'autres. Vous voulez revivre inlassablement votre premier baiser, votre première victoire, votre dernier amour ? Alors cliquez et sélectionnez. Qu'est-ce que vous choisirez de vous rappeler si vous pénétrez dans la réalité virtuelle d'After Image for Tomorrow de Singing Shame pour, au moment de mourir, vous repasser éternellement 3 souvenirs. Aussi, possiblement, dans le futur, les mondes des vivants et celui des morts sont encore plus poreux, ou en tout cas, on a l'illusion qu'ils le sont. On les a virtualisés pour leur donner une forme tangible, autre que celles qui naissent dans nos esprits. Comme dans Seven Life, où l'on ouvre la porte du monde des esprits et des rêves, et où la technologie permet l'intermonde entre le monde des vivants et celui des morts. Finalement, les agents intelligents, la réalité virtuelle, les avancées technologiques ont rendu réels les éléments qui existent depuis longtemps. Depuis la nuit des temps, on traque les fantômes, on cherche à connaître l'après pour accéder à l'éternel. Il suffit d'observer Haunted Telegraph de Véronique Bellan. Elle nous rappelle que dès son origine, les médiums technologiques sont des médias qui ont cherché à dialoguer avec les fantômes et rendre perceptibles ce qui nous entoure et les données invisibles. Avec la technologie, le fantôme devient numérique et au-delà de rendre visible, il peut flouter davantage encore la réalité. Dans Grave de Thierry Fournier, on oscille entre l'idéologie transhumaniste et la mort zombie, face à une pierre tombale en bug perpétuel, face à laquelle on ne sait plus très bien si on a atteint l'immortalité ou l'errance des âmes. Ces fantômes numériques peuvent aussi venir enrayer les mécanismes, repositionner l'humain dans sa condition d'interdépendance. Parce que si les fantômes sont autant sollicités depuis des siècles et des siècles, c'est parce qu'on craint l'autonomie et l'impact de l'invisible. Alors, imaginez si le glitch était en réalité le révélateur de fantômes numériques. Une œuvre comme How To d'Elisabeth Caravella prendrait une toute autre dimension. En effet, de prime abord, on se trouve devant un tutoriel cinématographique dans lequel sa créatrice nous apprend à réaliser un texte en 3D. Mais très vite, son exercice se complique. Le logiciel devient incontrôlable. Elle découvre alors qu'elle n'est plus seule. De quoi laisser ouvert le champ du possible et se rassurer. Car ici, c'est encore maintenant, et jusqu'ici, tout va bien. Au début de notre ère technologique, à l'époque du règne de la cybernétique, l'homme a enclenché inconsciemment une course contre la montre, avec son principal collaborateur, son partenaire de jeu le plus évident finalement, le vivant. Comme une transposition du rêve ancien d'éternité, on a cherché un endroit où personne ne meurt jamais. On a rêvé d'hommes-machines et de conquête spatiale. On s'est senti invincible, doté de super-pouvoirs. On a souvent agi en oubliant de questionner nos actions, parce que la course au progrès n'est pas le temps de la réflexion. Parce qu'il faut aller toujours plus vite et toujours plus loin. On a oublié que le mouvement dépend de l'être, du vivant, que le premier mouvement c'est celui de la Terre qui ne s'arrête jamais de tourner. On s'est possiblement égaré, remplaçant le rythme humain par celui des machines, du tout technologique. On est rentré dans l'ère du tout contrôle, tout anticipable, et on a cru par ce biais créer ce qui n'est véritablement qu'un subterfuge d'éternité. Après avoir cherché un endroit où l'on ne meurt jamais, après avoir cru le trouver, on se rend compte que cette quête, en plus d'être vaine, n'apporte pas la sérénité escomptée. On a rompu le lien avec le vivant, on a fait fi de nos interconnexions naturelles. Aujourd'hui, dans un monde à l'arrêt où on se prend de face une réalité ancienne, l'homme est faillible, éternellement faillible. On meurt tous un jour, on doit tous mourir un jour. On n'a jamais contrôlé le vivant. On a tenté de le conquérir, un virus a remis les compteurs à zéro. On prend conscience qu'il est possible de mettre la course au progrès sur pause. On apprend à questionner l'éternité avant de la vouloir à tout prix. L'éternité dans un monde en ruine n'est le rêve de personne. Alors que dire après l'éternité ? Quand tout est terminé, c'est l'endroit de tous les possibles. C'est la perspective de nouveaux imaginaires. Quand tout semble en ruine, c'est le moment où on replante. Quand tout est à l'arrêt, on questionne. Et quand un monde finit irrémédiablement, un autre renaît. C'est peut-être là, la doxa éternelle, la fin et le commencement d'autre chose. 2020 a mis en lumière les soubresauts de ce monde d'après. On peut espérer, au regard des dernières générations, que celles à venir questionneront davantage le vivant, le futur, le vivre ensemble et peut-être le vivre bien. Alors pourquoi attendre ? 2020, c'est possiblement le début du temps des utopies concrètes. Et par là, de nouveaux rêves pour de nouvelles et plus réelles réalités.
tu es la co-auteure de l'une des œuvres.
So you are the co-author of one of the works that we saw, Seven Lives. So I wonder,
où la technologie permet d'aller dans cet intermonde.
in this artwork, technology allows the interworld, the world between the living and the dead.
Charnel, finalement, qu'on peut avoir.
So I wonder, what is the link to the body that we have? How human are we? How much do we need to have this link to the body in this futuristic universe? Because the body in this case could be just an accessory. It could probably be detached from the spirit.
Complètement fabulatoire et qui est vraiment un récit qui.
What's the narrative here? Is it something like a narrative that does not suit us, or do you really think that this is a possible opening?
Alors, pour avoir fait l'expérience de la misère virtuelle,
I have had an experience of virtual misery in my life, so I can
de moments personnels, quoi, pour pouvoir parler de ça.
Talk about some personal moments that I have had, and I can really talk about this. I have been a virtual creator for a certain time, a virtual creator without a body. I was living in the virtual world, and I was living so much more in the virtual world than in the real world. I could not really look into the real world, and at a certain point I started wondering about this virtual substance, about this idea, and about how we can perceive the virtual for what it really is. I have done a lot of different things in the virtual setting. I was a prostitute there for a while. I was working on the report on the connection between the bodies, and I was questioning my own body from this point of view.
Ça a été une expérience de mort.
It was really a huge experience, I think, and an experience of death, I think. Right now, I feel very much alive, but at a certain point, it was an experience of death and an experience of dying of your body or of your spirit, of both of them, because the separation between the body and the spirit creates a huge suffering, because at a certain point we certainly can tell ourselves that we are following the flow or just contemplating something. But finally, the separation is a break, and this break makes us suffer more and more as time passes. We can tell ourselves that we are essential, and the separation between us and ourselves is something very good, but this is something that actually kills us, and I have died of that, and it has been a very big and violent experience for me. So I think that this is something that I have really lived through entirely. All of my body has been taken by this process, and this was a very violent process. It was like being hit by a truck of reality, and it was something that was coming from outside. It's something that I lived through, as if my body has been hit by itself from the interior. So it actually shook all of my certainties about eternity, about immortality, about the essence of our bodies, about our ability to be able to project ourselves into the poetic world.
Et donc c'est une position absolument de privilège et de.
Right now, I think that it actually gave me this position of privilege and of these different approaches, because I have had this experience. I do not really want to provide you an answer to this question. I know I live with the traces of the invisible around of me. There are invisible and visible things constantly present around me, and this is how I live. And what I try to do is to try and transmit a certain grade for the reading of all of this. It's definitely affected by my ego and by my privileges, by my points of view, transfeminist, etc. But this radiography of the invisible that I see around me, as if my body was actually a room with an echo of all of this.
Je m'interroge encore dessus et je pense
However, I'm still questioning myself about all of this, and I think that all the creative work is in transmitting this questioning. It's not being only turned toward the institutions that are here to sell all of this, but to be a medium between the two of those. And I think that the objective here is to turn toward all the rest of the world, all those who don't have the access to this approach. And through our creative work, we can share this approach, share it with others, and
les esprits s'émouvoir.
Let bodies and spirits be touched and moved by this. Wouldn't it be easier to be generous in this virtual world than in the physical world? Because today we know that the practice of the patrimonial culture, like exhibition spaces, venues, etc., are affected. So to which extent the digital, because you were talking about the poetic approach to the video games, etc. So how finally can we access all these spaces where even more people are present? This is very complex. This is the fight of the professional life, and this is something that I have been doing for 20 years now. We don't really put some poetic things into the video games because, well, if we have a fox that is walking in the snow, it's probably very poetic, etc. But just to have a certain framework of the references that would be poetic, that would place us and make us think that we are not in the Hollywood scenario, but somewhere else. But in video game, things that are escaping are quite usual. But what is very interesting is to understand from inside what really creates this nature, this virtual nature, this virtual substance. And starting from here, we are able to create and to offer something new. This is what I have seen. And by talking about virtuality, I'm talking about our will of showing this and of creating these approaches. This is the first thing. And the second thing is the diversity is also, and I can tell you that I have worked a lot in this very, very man-centered world of video game creation. And I have seen all the different changes come there because I have seen girls arriving there. I have seen this diversity that emerged, and that was more and more important because video game development is a very complicated process. And we fed on all of these experiences. We have learned through the consensus and by putting together all of our experiences and privileges with the others. So we have learned together to respect each other, to understand each other, and to create the artwork that goes far beyond all the process, the traditional process of creation, because normally the process of video game creation is a very traditional and very strict process. That this is why we do have a lot of video games that look like each other. We don't really have the right to do something else. We have to be precise and exact and do what has to be done and not what could have been done. So in the virtual world, it's so much more complicated. We have to understand this particularity right now through the pictures, and all the different facets of the pictures are a real problem today because we have to work with machines. And we have to understand who is beyond all the process of image production. Us, when I'm talking about us, is that I'm trying to be all together with you and with everyone else here to have this collective point of view, because this is how we have to be decentralized. And there is a gesture that I like very much in the perception of time, is that when we turn to look back, we can see all the traces of us. It's like when a person is going upstairs, we can see all of the gestures that led us to the current situation. So we can basically turn back and look at all of these traces. Look at all of these traces of person who are whispering to us.
C'est l'interprète, elle est
Oui, non, mais c'est l'humidité.
Et avec ton débit et ton vocabulaire, je pense
And this is the humidity. Okay.
Mais donc voilà, donc je pense que nous, voilà, donc faire collectif.
I think that collectively we have.
Te voir parce que c'est un mot qui me casse, etc. Mais on a cette.
We have this.
Cette nécessité de
need
comment est-ce qu'on déborde
to tell ourselves how exactly we can go beyond this process, this production process that allowed us to create our artwork and to privilege a certain mean of expression, how we share it, etc., and what we will do with this. And the VR, as well as the hybrid art and digital, I don't really want to say digital art, but this is something that is very interesting. So we need to be able to turn back and to look at how exactly we can reuse it and to throw it back as steam, probably as steam that will be redistributed. This is why maybe we have a lot of affection for different structures that try to produce, to work differently, and that try to make visible all the different production means. At CHRONIQUES, we have seen this. We have about 40 artworks that have different means and different ways of touching different audiences. But at the same time,
dans un projet de curation commun. Peut-être.
These are the common projects. Probably the very last point that I would like to underline here, at the third chapter, we are talking about the glitch. The glitch in this digital space, the space that is created by the technology, that is not always understood. Sometimes we think that we have it, but sometimes we don't have it anymore. So this question about the glitch, is it something that is kind of political today, something that is as a bug in our society, like the corona is a glitch or something?
Yel, c'est notre, non?
The corona, yes.
Ok, alors ça c'est.
Okay, so this is cool.
Alors, il y a plusieurs manières.
We actually have different ways to look at this and to look at this actualization of the real, how we can be more receptive and more reactive to these desires. And first of all, we have the panic. The crisis of panic, the fit of panic when we see something that goes beyond everything that we have seen before, when we see the context change drastically. So the panic is something that appears. This is something that's very interesting. Don't forget this word, panic, is coming from a person who is having a nap between 12 and 2 p.m. and we don't have to disturb this person. So this was from, it comes from Greek. We understand it as a chaos in front of something that is not defined, that is not understood, so it's kind of a madness that appears facing this unusual situation in reality. So we are talking about this fits of panic, and in Greek history we often see this sort of fits of panic. In different situations that have been explained, different situations related to nature, to the destruction of nature. So we are here in the consequences of all of this. This is the very first point. And the second point is that, now, what are we talking about here? How can we turn the cyber world against itself? To reopen this nature, because this is an absolute disaster for all of us. The consecration of the applied cyber science. So the glitch is an idea from what I have lived in the virtual world, from this questioning that I have had about the substance, the virtual substance. I have spent days and days looking for it, looking for that moment when the virtual world will show me, substantially show me, all of this. And the glitch, the lag, the community exchange and the creation of user content, everything that is created in the virtual world and is thrown into, but from the interior with all the rules that apply to it, with the inverse gravity, with the textures that we have there, because I have worked a lot in the virtual world and I know how we create gravity and how we escape gravity there. It's a very interesting topic here. So, yeah, it's something that is still very amazing and interesting for me. This is how I lived it. And I started to really see this substance. This was my questioning. It was the thought that I have had. So is the system able to be conscious of itself and to produce a certain waste? So this is not me. This is someone else, Marion Dorsale, I think, who told that. But this waste of the virtual world, the waste of the idea that is generated on its own and it's conscious on its own, we don't really know how to read it, how to catch it, how to work with it. So the glitch is an idea because the glitch shows us finally the moment when the world splits in two with a certain probability. And can we work just with the glitch? Often people say this is not the bug, but this is a feature. This is a proverb that is quite well known. Just to translate it to you, often people would say, oh yeah, it doesn't work, this is just bugs, etc. The thing that you have created is so bad, and that's when you say, no, this was thought like that, this was created like that, designed like that. So it's really interesting to see how we can use this, glitches, and how we can create from all of this, not really panic, but the accidents, the intimacy accidents, the accidents of reality, because we can talk about our personal experience, we can talk about our subjective experience of what it is to feel moved by something. And how finally we can make mistakes in calculation. How we can face this society. And this is something that is also vital because I'm talking here about the treatment and the attention that we show to one another. We have to debug the bugging something, the bugging connection with the other, the oppression that we do to the others. Because otherwise we're not in the progress, but in the transcendence of the human element. This is very hard because we're very much centered on our own pain, on our own way of feeling the pain, on our own formulation of pain on the unconscious level. Because if I say it hurts, it aches, you will understand that it aches, but you will not really understand what I feel, because probably this is like a cold ache of a knife that pierces my skin and my flesh, or probably something else, but then it becomes kind of delirious. So how can we create these kind of actions? So for right now, we will not be piercing somebody with a knife, obviously, but we will try to understand how to express our intimate side better, how to express ourselves better facing the others, how to share this intimacy in a new way, how to, thanks to all the treatments and to the attention that we show the others, show also that we can move away from the economy that was imposed on us. For me, this is the very first way of doing this, the very first possibility. And then also we can talk about the education, the transmission of our radiography, of our capacity, of our ability to see the other, to transmit it to people, to, well, I don't really like this word, but to the entities, to all the entities that we have around us. And I'm thinking about the nature, I'm thinking about plants, people, everything. So how can we transmit all of this? How can we share it? How can we give it? How can we also give this ability of to radiograph all of this? How can we take people by the hand to do it? Congratulations once again, probably. We can also talk about the abstract reality here. There are beautiful texts here showing that the abstraction is not something that goes away from nature, but is the expression of nature. For me, this is exactly the core of this topic, because the topic is not really the virtual, the digital, is the interaction between visible and invisible, the transmission between visible and invisible, the showing of all this process of permanent transition. So I don't really think that we have to think about the before and after. We have to think in terms of this perpetual transition. Thank you so much, Sabrina. Okay, so I think that we can end on this note. Yes, this is good. Thank you so much. I would like to thank you for your presence with us today. Thank you. Thank you so much for your attention. I also would like to thank Céline Berthoumieux and Mathieu Vabre for not having panicked and for having allowed us to be here today. And for those who are physically here today, you will be able to visit the exhibitions, because the exhibitions were here, because people were courageous and they continued their work, and they have created these imaginary spaces for all of you to see. Thank you so much, Sabrina. Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you, Marie. Oh, so you are leaving the stage right now. For now, we will disinfect the totems, the mics. Thank you so much, Marie. Thank you for this work that you have done. I would like to thank some more people right now. Thank you so much for all of you who are with us on streaming behind your screens. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for all of those who are here in Aix and in Marseille with us physically. Also, thank you for all the stuff, for everyone who has been working really hard to make the second edition of Chroniques real, despite all the special and preposterous conditions in which we are right now. So the choice that we made collectively as the team of Chroniques is that of the artworks and the creations of the artists. It is said for both the artists and for us that it is only seen by the professionals. However, the intensity of these encounters between these professionals and the artwork moved and surprised us a lot, and this is for the best. However, this is the paradox of the current period that we wanted to underline. While people really need art sensitivity, meaning the only ones who have access to it right now are the professionals in this area. The mic. So as we were saying, for this edition, we have had a big pleasure to have our guest of honor, which is Taiwan, which is why we would like to give the floor to the ambassador, Wu Chi-Chang-Francois, and we will listen to him through the video. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very honored to be invited to say a few words for the 2020 edition of Chroniques, the Biennale of Digital Imagination. With the active support of the Taiwanese Ministry of Culture, 11 Taiwanese artists are presenting a set of 15 contemporary digital artworks, which, while illustrating the richness and vitality of digital art in Taiwan, highlight my country's wish to participate internationally as the island of technology with a humanistic vocation. In this particular period, digital art, by the very nature of the new technologies on which it is based, is disrupting traditional physical barriers, and today it is online distancing that allows us to enjoy the charms of the digital revolution. In the recent past, the Cultural Center of Taiwan in Paris has carried out a good number of artistic projects, shows and exhibitions in collaboration with organizations and institutions with an artistic vocation in the south of France, whether in Avignon, Marseille, Nice, or Cannes. With the opening of a new Taiwan office in Aix-en-Provence this year, our bilateral relations can be extended to new areas. And my dearest wish is that in the future there will be more cooperation between the south of France and Taiwan. And to conclude, I would like to sincerely thank the Second Nature and Zinc Association for the care that they have provided in the creation and preparation of this Biennale, which is a true digital art festival, as well as for the possibility that they have given us to access a beautiful artistic platform for professional exchanges and to share our experiences and achievements in the field of digital art. May CHRONIQUES 2020 be crowned with the success it deserves. Thank you for your attention. So we have had this partnership with Taiwan. Yes, during the screening mission in Taiwan a year ago, we were very impressed by the dynamism of the artistic and professional scene, a very assertive scene that is rarely seen in France and Europe. We discovered exceptional facilities, exceptional artists, and among the facilities were the C-Lab, a state-of-the-art contemporary center in the heart of the city of Taipei that stretches over 7 hectares, but also the Kaohsiung VR Film Festival, where we have worked also, that produces some of the best sellers of VR today that can be seen in international film festivals, such as the one in Venice or Tribeca in New York. And right now we will listen to the director of C-Lab, who has collaborated with all of us. Lai Zhangling is her name.
Greetings from Taiwan.
Chers amis et collègues, bonjour de Taïwan. C'est un grand honneur pour moi de représenter le laboratoire de culture contemporaine de Taïwan.
CHRONIQUES Biennial of Digital Imagination. Since its inception in 2018, the CHRONIQUES Biennale has been presenting the latest digital imagination driven by creativity and innovation. It is also served as a powerful network for the global practitioners from institutions to industry to connect, exchange, and cooperate. In this time of urgency, the theme of 2020 CHRONIQUES Biennale is Eternity, which highlights the reflection on the human condition and civilization crisis during this post-pandemic era. Taiwan has been highly recognized as the island of technology and culture, with the outstanding technology achievement and rich cultural assets. Since the late 20th century, the integration of science, technology, and arts has become the major driving force for cultural and social innovation in Taiwan. In 2020 CHRONIQUES Biennale, Taiwan is named the guest of honor, and C-Lab
Oui, alors en effet, la question de la coopération internationale, là en l'occurrence avec un soutien financier très important du Centre culturel de Taïwan en France et du ministère de la Culture taïwanais, c'est encore et toujours un enjeu, peut-être encore plus maintenant et dans la période que nous sommes en train de vivre. Imaginer des coopérations futures, des flux, continuer à échanger et continuer à brasser les cultures. C'est un enjeu très important à la fois pour Chronique et puis je pense pour chacun d'entre nous.
Oui, donc vous l'aurez compris, Chronique est une marketplace internationale et la coopération...
For Chronique, I think you have understood that for Chronique, international cooperation is very interesting and our partnership has been strengthened this year because we are working now with the French Institute. And today we also have with us Agnès Alfandari from the French Institute. Hello, Agnès. Yes, hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. It's a very big pleasure for me to be with all of you today and to be able to see the artwork in real, to see people face-to-face, because right now it's quite difficult to have that. Just a couple of words about the French Institute. This is a public institution depending on the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of France, but also the Ministry of Culture. We are here to promote the French creations. I am the director of the digital department, so we are working on digital art. We have programs and tools, and one of these programs is The Focus. The Focus normally is an invitation of international professionals who are found by our colleagues working in the French Institute, in Alliance Française, in different cultural services, embassies, who are working with professionals, culture professionals in different countries, respective countries where they're working. So they find for us different professionals in specific fields. For instance, for this partnership with the Chroniques, they were identifying for us partners in digital art, and we are inviting them to come here to see the artwork, to participate in networking events, and to exchange and interact with the French professionals. The aim of this focus programs is to create different international collaboration, to open different markets, expose for the French creations. So what happens when we cannot travel anymore, when we cannot take a plane or expose here? We have, in this case, to come up with a new way of working. This is what has been created here. My colleague Alain Louis, who is right here, who I would like to congratulate, has created a special format with the team of Chroniques, which is a dematerialized format. So what can this mean? It means that everything will be available through the website. We will have a lot of digital resources, meaning artist interviews, virtual exhibitions, etc. And all of this just to give the access to the French artwork in a different way, because this is our aim. We would like to give this access to all the different international professionals in this field who may be probably gallery owners or organizers or venues owners. So we are doing it virtually this time. A lot of resources are being shared virtually. And the very heart of this focus program is to allow these professionals to meet face-to-face, which is why we have organized online. Thank you to all the video conferences that we have right now and all this technology that allows this. It's very efficient. We have organized over 250 different meetings that were held last month for approximately 150 French professionals and 30 foreign professionals that have been identified. So we were learning as we were doing it. It was not always very obvious or easy. We have had a couple of meetings that had problems. You can imagine that because we are working with different time zones and it's not very easy to organize something like that. Nevertheless, the feedback was very positive from both sides, from the French side as well as from the foreign professionals who participated in these meetings. We have already had this feedback and we have had several cases of successful collaboration that has started. So we're really happy that we were able to do this. We were able to do this with the CHRONIQUES team, with Second Nature and Zank. And this is an incredible partnership. So as you have said, in this very special preposterous circumstances, we were able to organize all of this and have such a beautiful feedback from a lot of people who were able to participate. Yes, this partnership was really great. I think that collectively we were able to show the resilience. Little by little, we came up with different things. We did it one by one or collectively. It is very important. This is why I would like to underline it this morning, because this is the first focus program dedicated to digital arts. And it was important for us to keep working and to keep pushing this partnership forward, this partnership that we have with the French Institute, because you're a very important French and international institution, and you really can do a lot to support and help the digital arts for export also. Of course, this is not something that we have imagined initially. However, we had to try and to do it in order to be able to keep going. And to grant a certain international development to the artists, to the promotion of their artwork, etc. This is why I would like to thank you. It's a big pleasure to have you with us. Thank you, Agnès. Okay, so I keep the mic. The DNA, and this is a little smile to our Leonese colleague. The DNA of this event is also constituted by the territorial project, which unites partners from different disciplines on the regional and territorial level. This is possible thanks to the platform that we have, the platform of co-production of CHRONIQUES. Yes, of course, because CHRONIQUES is also the creation Biennale, and this Biennale was able to produce approximately 19 original artworks and 30 French artworks. It's over 70 invited international artists. You have been able to see it with this topic of eternity. We have the expos that are organized in Aix, Marseille, and Avignon. We also have 4 associated exhibitions that are organized in partner cities. So, as you have just said, it's an important dynamics with our partners, especially in the digital field. I would like to thank all of our partners who were with us despite the difficult contest. I would also like to thank all the artists and the producers and the professionals who are coming here to discover this artwork. And we believe that very soon we will be able to show this artwork also to the greater audience. We would like also to thank all the institutions and the territorial authorities who have helped us a lot, and without who we wouldn't be able to organize all of this. This year, more than any other year, it has become a little, as Sabrina was saying, it has become a transition, a permanent transition. We have tried to work on something that will be explorable from close up as well as from very far away. We have worked with the companies like, among others, the Digital Art Club, which has just named its annual prize winner Guillaume Marmin, or also the Verrière 2020 prize, which will be unveiled tonight. So this will happen tonight. And the winner will have their artwork exhibited during the 2022 Biennale, because, of course, we will organize a Biennale in 2022. And as I have said, to see all the artwork from very far away, we're talking here about the digitalization of all the exhibitions and the remote mediation of artworks to allow the general audience to really take a look at them. So week after week, we watched the opening dates being moved. Just to remind you that in 2018, the Chronique had 55,000 visitors, and we expected this year almost 100,000 people throughout all the exhibitions and public spaces. And of course, Chronique, it's an exceptional network of professionals, the professionals that know how to help each other and how to give the energy to one another. It's also the Hacknam network of hybrid arts and digital cultures, and it's also all the international and French professionals, all those who are with us, who support us and help us. This is very precious for all of us. Thank you to all of you. I know that we have been thinking a lot this morning, but this is something that's important for us. We really think it, we really mean it, all of our team. This afternoon and tomorrow, all of you who are watching through us online on live stream, I would like to remind you the program of this afternoon. I will be really, really brief because I understand that you're here and you would like to see the exhibitions. You will have all this information on the website chronique.org. You can still subscribe to the workshops that we have here. These workshops are centered on the idea of thinking about the after. And we will be working around the scenarios and the new economical models. We will be talking about the digitalization of the artwork and of the new governance models. So these are some of the topics that will be tackled at the workshop. And of course, you will also have this afternoon and tomorrow during the whole day, you will also have the access to the international digital art market with a lot of project pitches from different artists and producers. This will be available through Facebook Live as well. You will be able to explore this international digital arts marketplace, which is also produced by the Electro Montreal Festival, who has been our guest of honor. Of course, this year, artists from Quebec weren't able to come, unfortunately. However, we will invite them for the next edition because they're part of all this Biennale. So on this, we would like to finish the part for this morning. I would like to thank once again the Chronique team, and I would like to wish you very good professional meetings. See you later. Thank you.
L'application MOA et qui va se faire là-bas, ça va être par petits groupes de 5. Et puis pendant tout le temps de pause du déjeuner, vous pouvez rejoindre Christelle qui est ici à côté du photobooth pour
the MOA, this will be organized in small groups of 5 people, but also you can talk to Estelle, who is right here.